it's me, Jess. Welcome to my channel. I'm here with another channeled message. This is a specific message. It might resonate with you. It might not. All right. So I'm channeling this message almost immediately after yesterday's message. So the message that came out on the channel yesterday, I'm channeling these two back to back. And I feel like for some of you, not for everybody, but there might be a connection between these two messages. Take that how it resonates. But with this one, I'm hearing stepmom. So I feel like there's some kind of family dynamic here, or like a family drama or family blunder that's gone on. And it feels like this isn't family of origin, although again, take it how it resonates, but feels for most of you, this is going on in real time. So this is a family that you've built, or a family that you've joined into, or like a family that you've joined and then also like helped to build. Take that how it resonates. But I'm hearing other words here too, because I'm hearing disillusionment, dissolved. And then I just heard, Katy Perry in my mind when she sings I'm Wide Awake, from that song Wide Awake. So I feel like what's happened here is like there's some type of dissolving of like a family unit and like the family bonds and maybe like some kind of connection here, like maybe a primary connection. It feels like for a lot of you this is like a marriage or something, some kind of contract. And as that is dissolving, it feels like you are being disillusioned and you are wide awake. And it feels like that's on a lot of different levels. So it feels like in terms of the dynamics of this family, you thought this family operated one way and that it existed for one reason, you know? But whatever that is, I feel like it's being dissolved and you're seeing like what's real underneath kind of. That might be shocking, but it does feel like there's something kind of slow about this. This word dissolve is like a really weird word to use because it's not like, well, there's been a divorce or like this family. No, I'm hearing like dissolve because I don't know if you've ever seen somebody, or maybe you've done this yourself, like refurbish a piece of wood furniture that's been painted. And at first they've got to put a solution on it that dissolves the paint. And so it breaks the bonds of the paint so that you can strip the paint off. And then you can see what kind of wood is underneath and what the condition of the wood is. That's what I'm talking about. That's what it feels like is going on here. And then of course you'll sand it, like you're kind of doing the work to kind of get this clear and to restore what this piece of furniture like actually really was. So that's like with the family, but also it feels like with this guy, which I feel like is your partner here. Of course, flip the genders if that applies and if this is a woman, but I'm just going to keep saying it's a guy because that's the way it's coming through in my mind. So it feels like you're disillusioned about him and who he really is and like why he's involved in this family, like maybe why he has a family to begin with. Because I think there's maybe something here where you thought you really bought into something like, well, he has like family values, or it could also be like why he's so close with his ex or something, that they have kids or something. And you could have like bought into like, oh, well, they just have family values or something. Then they could have turned out into an affair or something. I don't know. But you're realizing that that's not the case here, that there's something else going on with this guy that you didn't really see before. And I think for some of you, there's a disillusionment with yourself, like about some kind of cycle that plays out within yourself that maybe attracted you to this masculine, or like it was some kind of plug in that you had to him and to like this family situation, but it's some kind of cycle that plays out and you're being disillusioned about that part of yourself here as well. But there is something about him like being the focal point. And it does seem like something's gone on here, you know, and it seems like he's maybe at the center of it. And so in trying to understand that, he's a natural focal point for whatever this is. And in staring at him as the focal point, it almost feels like it's become, you know, in some meditation practices, like they'll have you focus on something, whether that's internal, like focusing on like your third eye point, you know, like behind the eyes or something, or when, you know, you can meditate with your eyes open and kind of rested in a gaze on like a rock or like this dot on the floor or whatever. And it's just a way of kind of training the mind and bringing everything into focus. It feels like weirdly he's been that for you. Like he is what spirit has used as like some kind of focal point. And then right behind him, I'm seeing like almost like there's a hole that's being ripped through the Maya, the illusion. And like that's bringing in some kind of light energy where you can kind of see things clearly. And then again, I'm hearing it, I'm wide awake. And so I feel like this has been very painful, even if it's like kind of slow and you're like kind of chewing on this. And it is like a healing process where it feels like you're kind of putting your feet on the ground and you're seeing the truth about this situation. Now there's other words that are coming through here too. Sabotage is one of those words, because I feel like sabotage is like a major component of what's gone down here. And it feels like externally, maybe there's been some sabotage that has come from somewhere. Maybe this masculine, maybe there's somebody that slammed into your family unit here and sabotaged things. Maybe you sabotaged something here. Maybe that's how you involved, maybe he was with somebody else and you were like in an affair or something, but there was like a fantasy kind of around that. But there is this element of sabotage, and it feels like there's external sabotage because we can be sabotaged externally, but there's also this component of internal sabotage that I feel like everybody here is like working to try and uncover within themselves and like address. Now, this word sabotage is strongly connected to another word, regret. But it feels like something here has to play out, like a full cycle here has to play out in order for the true, and that feels like the true nature of this, like regret, to uncover some type of regret. Like maybe you regret like involving with this person and like having a family here. I don't know, but there's like some kind of regret. And also maybe this masculine sabotaged your family and you're like on the receiving end of it. And he will regret it, but it feels like he's got to go through like the full cycle here. And that's kind of what I want to uncover, because I think part of this is like whatever happened, and your family, this family is like kind of dissolving. It's falling apart, right? But I feel like this masculine maybe very quickly jumped in with somebody else. And this could be somebody that he was like already having an affair with. And maybe this is like that sabotaging energy from the outside. This person slammed into your relationship. And so it's making it impossible for you guys to have like one-to-one conversations and like actually hear each other and work things out between the two of you, or like have this relationship, right? That could be, no matter how much they've cleaned up their image is what I'm hearing as well. Because they might feel like they've successfully hidden that, even if you don't intentionally if you don't like buy it 100% and you kind of, and maybe you've made that known, but they feel like there's no smoking gun for some of these people, right? So even if they've hidden it, there could have been some type of, like affair. And so then this masculine like went and jumped in with that connection. That could be the case. It also could be that there's been no affair here, but this family is dissolving anyways. It feels like maybe this masculine is like, there's a lot of willpower here and like very wants to go make his mark on the world, but maybe like he started doing well in his career or something, because it feels very self-absorbed maybe. And that's maybe where you're feeling disillusioned, because you thought that he was like a family guy and that he was very noble. And so you built a family, but then, and he benefited from that. And as he started taking off in his career or something and his status started to rise, then he thought he wanted something else from himself, went and broke away from this. And then maybe he jumped in quickly with somebody else. But it feels like he jumped in quickly with somebody else, regardless of if that was like an affair situation or something else. And there's a really quick turnaround with that, where things like rushed forward very quickly. So it could be that they started living together like very, very quickly. Or there's something to do with like the Cancer Capricorn axis. And again, that's that like family, it's very traditional. And that could have been what was like drew you into him, because you thought that he had those actual values. But with that axis showing up here, I feel like it's more about reputation and it's more about image. And so it's like he can't just date somebody, you know, and especially when he's got a family, because he should be moving a lot slower if he's got a family, right? And you know it. If he's genuinely concerned about these kids and keeping these kids safe, but he's not doing that. He's jumping in. He's moving in with somebody. He's moving his kids in with somebody. He's, forming these family bonds, and that's maybe not healthy. Maybe he should make sure it's safe. Maybe he should but he's not doing that. It also could be like there's a marriage here. Like maybe he like got married, or like this person got pregnant really quickly or something, but it feels like a rush. Like what is the rush to like, it feels like to solidify this in terms of the image of like, oh, this isn't just my girlfriend. This is wife, we have a family. It's like this rush into that. And that is something that I think has, again, caused you to feel shaken and just like, again, disillusioned by him, and you don't understand it. But it's like peeling back. Okay, so what I feel like has gone on here is that this masculine, he's playing out some kind of cycle. And cycles are scary, man, because they are what they say they are, right? Like they kind of loop around, and every cycle has a zenith and it has a nadir. And it feels like you don't fully understand this man until like this full cycle has like played out, because it feels like when you met him or when you joined in on his life, you joined in at some point in this cycle, right? And that was just a point you try to get the lay of the land. So what I mean by that is you weren't with this man since birth, you weren't with him when he first rode a bike and skinned his knee. So you don't know this cycle that kind of tends to play out in the background, emotionally, psychologically, in terms of his relationships. And so I feel like you kind of felt blindsided by it, because he presents a certain way and we all present a certain way. And he gave you a linear story of like, well, I started here, and I think here might have involved another relationship. It could have to do with this family dynamic. Maybe he had kids with somebody else or something. So the story was, I started out here, now you're meeting me here, and that here is somehow connected to the past. So if he wasn't doing very well, it's like, well, she took everything, or it could be, and then I'm getting myself back up on my feet, it's something. And you thought that was a linear path, and it's not. It's a cycle. It's a circle. It loops back around where the past is made present. Now that could be this person literally loops back around to an ex, like this same ex. And again, you could have thought that their relationship was one way because they have family values, or he just has family values. He cares about his family. So that's why they have secret conversations. That's why there's something to do with their house. That's why he lived with her, and it's not true. Right. It's a deception. It's like an illusion. So it could be he starts getting a little better and then like went back there, but it also doesn't have to be that. This could be an entirely new person, and the dynamics, like the same dynamics, could still play out. And I feel like you were really caught off guard by those dynamics. And that seems to be linked to his own family and some type, like the family of origin, and some kind of what I would call a family curse. Now, what I mean when I say family curse is that there's some kind of family trauma here that plays out. And Tim Fletcher, who is a psychologist on YouTube, he describes trauma as being this pain that a family does not know how to deal with. They don't know how to eradicate this pain. So it keeps playing out in this like kind of cyclical version. And I feel like somehow you got like wrapped up in this, and you were really confused. And you probably have your own like family stuff and your own like internal stuff that connected you into this here as well. And we'll kind of talk about that. So what I feel like his family cycle is, though, like from his family of origin, is, again, it's like with this stepmom energy. Now there's like third party energy in his family of origin. Now, if that's not the case and you're like, he doesn't have a stepmom, there was like a very traditional family setup. That's part of this cycle here, right? Of, well, I was raised in traditional family values, but it's more about the image in this family, whether you can detect it or not. And if you guys were in a long-term relationship or married or something, maybe you know this family and you could kind of pick up on that. So I would say if this is a family that's still together and still intact, I think dad's kind of full of himself. And I think that he's maybe high powered in his career, but it's a rival to the family. Like he wants to go in the world and have like a certain image and like seek out some kind of high powered, he wants success like in that way. And it had a certain effect on the family where the family essentially feels left behind. And so that becomes like this third party. I think that's the way it plays out if this isn't like an actual stepmom situation. But for most of you, I think it is. So I'm going to describe the dynamic that way, but just know it could play out even if there's not like a stepmom kind of energy here. But I think for a lot of you it is. But either way, I feel like this man that you were involved with is highly emotionally connected to his mom, like his biological mom, if there's like a stepmom here. And that's for better or for worse. And I think for most of you, there's a sense of camaraderie between the two of them, of like they have both felt the same emotions. They both feel left behind in some way by this father figure. They both feel neglected, or they both feel not enough. And this son, notice that in his mom. Notice the kind of emotional vulnerability in his mom, like almost a simpleness, like a trusting kind of nature in his mom. And he really identifies with that. And he wants to protect mom, and he wants to save mom, and he wants to be like near mom, and kind of like make that right. But as a child, he's not in a position to do that because he's not his dad, right? He's not her partner, and she needs something specific from her partner that he can't provide. And he's smaller, and that's his dad, like the authority. So it's not like he's in a position that he can save his mom, but he's going to grow into a man, right? And so he's playing out this cycle in his own family dynamic where he loves mom. I feel like he actually like really loves his mom, and notices a sensitivity in her, or like some type of vulnerability. And it feels like maybe she was the emotional connective glue of the family or something. And so is seeking out a partner kind of like that. But he is bound and determined by God that he's not going to make his mom feel the same way that his dad made his mom feel. But this is playing out with his own partner. So he's seeking out some kind of partner originally, I think, or maybe not, I don't know, that's like vulnerable. Now, there's two partners that this man oscillates back and forth between, and this ties into the cycle that you are somehow involved with. One of them is extremely sabotaging, manipulative, and is very good at presenting a soft, vulnerable front, but is actually very strong. Kind of a destructive energy, runs things from behind the scenes. But I think they've got a sob story. And it's probably real too. Some of it's real. But they play the victim, and they place him in this rescuer role. They might kick up some drama because they want that to kind of play out, right? That's one of these people. And another person is genuinely very vulnerable. And it could be, there's different kinds of this vulnerability, but it's like genuinely very like this person needs genuine assistance. Like this person needs genuine help. Where with this other person, there is some kind of psychological pain, but they're in control and they have weaponized something, and maybe to the point of sabotaging a pre-existing family, a pre-existing connection. But they could have been trying to play some games here and then actually ended up tanking this this relationship. I don't know. But this other kind of partner that he's with is genuinely vulnerable in some kind of way. And that person is, because I'm seeing them represented as like a lamb. And so it's the lamb and the Four of Swords in this card. And the Four of Swords is like a healing energy, so they could be like healing, they could be resting, but they also could be unaware of some kind of Seven of Swords energy that sits behind them. And in this deck, that Seven of Swords is a fox, very cunning, and it's like peeking out with one eye. So this person who's vulnerable has some kind of Seven of Swords sneaky energy in their background. So it could be that they involved, like they had a relationship like that played out, or that could be their family of origin. And so they're in need of some kind of help. And I'm not saying that person is like a victim or sees themselves that way, but I think that they were, at the time they meet this masculine, they're in a place of genuine vulnerability, which is all he's ever wanted. He's wanted to manifest that for himself. He probably doesn't use those terms, but he wants to find someone who's genuinely sweet and take care of that person. That's what he wants to do. So he says, I'm going to be a protector and a provider. But the thing is, he doesn't understand that. And he doesn't understand why his dad failed. He thinks that he understands why his dad failed, but he doesn't. Because his dad failed essentially and this is the family curse that goes on here. They don't know how to rid themselves of this pain. Dad failed because he failed to get himself under control. He doesn't see that as a part of being a protector and a provider. He needs to address his own lust. And he needs to address his own greed. Greed is essentially lust for material possessions and status and everything. And it actually feels like that. It feels like both of those things. Like if there was an affair here or something, that could go on. Even if it's not outed or something, like it's sensed here that the father is unfaithful to the family in some way. Or has been unfaithful to the family in some way. And it's because he doesn't rein in his own greed and he does not rein in his own lust. And that left this father figure open to this sabotaging energy that I think slammed into the family if this family got like broken up. And it feels like whatever that sabotaging energy was is maybe this stepmom energy that was then in this child's life. Now, that's not for everybody, right? For some, it's just this, it is very traditional, but maybe there was some things going on the side, but it's this father's, you get what I'm saying, right? But for others, I think it's easier if I describe this, if it actually kind of played out the way that I'm seeing it play out. So this father maybe met somebody here, or again, this could have been somebody from his past that was like very, put on a show, being very vulnerable. And again, with the Chariot card, there's two homes in the background. So this person could have also been married, or like maybe they come from a family that's like very wealthy or something, and they wanted to jump over onto his boat in some way because he's successful, or he's like gaining in some kind of success. And in part, that's because of the family that he's a part of, and the fact that mom's taking care of things at home and making his lunches and stuff. So he's able to like, and so somebody here wants that for themselves. And so they smashed in to this family and into this space, but it's not recognized that that's what was happening here, because this father is a protector, God damn it. But this plays out in this family curse, because just like this son who feels he needs to protect his mom from who? From his dad. Protect feminine energy from masculine energy becomes the equation. But what he can't see is that there's another feminine, it's like this girl on girl violence, potentially. And it's all tied together of lust and greed. He needs to understand greed, and that people are motivated by greed, and that they want to be seen in a certain way. And that sometimes you can have a feminine energy use a masculine energy to harm another feminine energy. And it looks like it's coming from the masculine. And it would look like that as well, because the masculine is the one that's built the family and made the vows. So it's not entirely wrong. But when this other lady smashed in here, she meant to sabotage his family, but she did it looking like a lamb. She did it looking like a lamb of like, help me, I'm so vulnerable. And I feel like when she smashed into this family, it's victim, rescuer, persecutor. So it plugs into his need to like, I want to help you. I got to save my mommy. And she painted herself as being his mommy, but in a different situation. So he loses sight of the actual person that he's chosen here, and that now he's fumbling the bag. He's losing sight of that. And he is learning a lesson here about what it means to be a protector and a fighter, what it means to have family values and to be able to put that in the world. And it's not just about having this like kind of status symbol of the family and an image of the family. But he bought into that, not realizing that's the thing he was supposed to be protecting somebody from here. He doesn't understand that. He doesn't understand this cunningness coming in the shape of a lamb, a lion kind of dressed as a lamb. This Trojan horse energy, doesn't understand it. And so whatever this energy is that kind of sabotaged in, it made him feel like an emperor, made him feel strong, like he's the one to save or protect or whatever. But used her moon energy, which is like her emotions, I think, and putting forth some kind of image, this image of a lamb. When I think if you met this woman, it's not that she doesn't have a sob story, but it's just like, she's a wolf, by God. You'd be scared of her. You wouldn't want to run into her in the woods at night. She's perfectly capable of taking care of herself, and you would know that. She's like the power in the situation. She just takes on this role of victim to bait him into being the rescuer, when in actuality, she's the persecutor and he's the victim. And so is the children and like the other family here. It's just this like kind of collateral damage. And it's because she wants to, there's a lot of, willpower is another word here. So where people put their willpower. And so this dad has a lot of willpower and wants to push himself forward in the world, be noble, be successful in his career, be traditional, have family values. But that puts him as a target for people who are kind of like this. And they want to also be seen like in a certain light, is what it seems like. She has a lot of willpower. She wants to be seen in that light, very like traditional or something, but she wants this like fast track here. And I think she also had a desire to split, to create a 2-family home for these children. She wanted to split that up in order to gain some kind of quick result here. But it has to do with this Cancer Capricorn axis. And she did that by this moon energy, and it's blocking the sun here. So it's preventing him from seeing the truth of her and the truth of this situation, which is why I'm saying this cycle has to kind of play out. Where he realizes, wait a second, I sabotage myself and my actual family and somebody here that I like actually love and should have been protecting. I sabotage that by joining with this person who intentionally sabotaged me and intentionally sabotaged my family. And that is the enemy here. It didn't come in the form of some kind of economic calamity or a natural disaster or some kind of other dude that was trying to smash in here. It came through me and through my own internal weakness of lust and greed and my desire to be seen a certain way. That's why this family and the men in this family, noble as they seem and as strong-willed as they seem, they fail to be protectors and providers. And I think there's kind of there's this pattern of either the dad's just very self-absorbed and just doesn't see the pain that he's inflicting on his family, and maybe there has been affairs here, but he's just much more concerned with his own image and the family just becomes a sidecar to that. Or this is a family that has like a wake of these kind of broken families in their past, and then this guy, that's why he jumps in with whoever he's had an affair, because that's a version of denial. Because he can't just, and you kind of think to yourself, my God, you need to move slower. Like why you protecting your kids looks like you moving slower right now. Why are you moving in with somebody? Why are you? And I think for some of you, I don't know which one you are, because to be honest, like you could have been a person who sabotaged in because you wanted in on this. And I think some of you have to be honest with yourself that that's who you are, because weirdly, I think that you wanted this man to rescue you as well. But it's like, the rescuing has to do with like your image and your career and raising your profile in some way. But it's still like processed through as like a survival thing for you, to where you, to be honest, if this is you, completely lack empathy. And there's babies here, okay? There's kids here that maybe you're like in competition with. You're not the baby. There's actual babies, So you could have smashed in here because you wanted to be rescued, and you had no empathy for anybody else that was wrapped up in this situation. And you said, well, this is what's best because he's my soulmate. And so if we're together, then, that's a lack of empathy is what that is. So, but there's also another group here where I feel like you are actually his like mother figure. Like as a partner, you are the person that there's a lot of love here, and he feels wrapped up with you like emotionally. And he wanted to like protect you. And it could have started off really romantic because you could have been in a low point in your cycle. You could have been, because something here crept up on you, some kind of, and I think it's a 7 of Swords energy of something creeping around in the background. So this exploding is another cycle for you of, well, I jumped in with somebody that I didn't know, or there was somebody that they're attached to. And that they either have a child with now or that they had a child with in the past, because it feels like it flip-flops. There's somebody here who's very manipulative, but is so good at presenting as vulnerable and can read in him that he wants to provide and protect and save. And then somebody who's actually that, and somebody who's not, pretends very well, and somebody who's actually that. So this is somebody who could go from relationship to relationship, and it's because he's in love with himself. And that's why he has a family here, and that's why he plays out all these rescuer fantasies, is because he is lustful about that image of himself as being this strong man that protects people. It almost doesn't matter. So I think if you're the real person here, where you're like, I was genuinely like at a hard point in time, maybe you moved in together quickly, maybe things moved fast is what I'm getting. Like you moved in quickly and you felt like, okay, well, he's got actually like family values. This is like, okay. I think you thought that he was noble. You thought that he was strong. And I think there was probably like a lot of like romance here, but you thought that he was stable. You thought that he had family values, but this isn't family values. This is somebody who's obsessed with like, I'm leading this family forward and I'm rescuing. And it almost doesn't matter who he switches into that role. And I think that's what hurts, because you were the real deal. And he didn't care about, like, kind of feels like lamb to the slaughter kind of thing. He didn't care about slaughtering you and your relationship when somebody who was actually a wolf in sheep's clothing came along and told him to do it, because he got to live out that kink. It feels like a kink. He got to live out that kink again, fresh. He didn't actually have any intention of genuinely being that, because to do that has sacrifice. It requires self-discipline. It's not glamorous, there's work. And that's why dad didn't do it. And now he's got the answer to his question. That's why dad didn't do it. It's not fun to do it. He's got a kink here. And his kink is himself. Is I'm so noble, I'm so great. That's why he involves in all these things. And that's what I think you've been disillusioned to. Because he's hurting the people that he wants to swear fealty to. He's hurting his mom all over again. He's a part of the problem all over again. And I feel like this is like a repeated cycle here. It's a habit. And this is a family trauma that they don't know how to deal with. Because the answer is they have to look within. They have to hold themselves accountable. They can't just look in the world and progress themselves forward and present whatever image that they have. So if you're wondering why this man jumped in, especially if there was like an affair here, it's because there's a desire to cover it up, and there's a need. There's a desperate need psychologically and internally for both of these people, because especially if this was an affair, they start off as an affair. Well, they pretend to have family values. Well, you can't have family values if you're destroying families. If you really have family values, you're the type of person that will restrict yourself. Doesn't matter. That could be your soulmate. And if you have family values and this person has a family, you're not touching it, are you? So no, I'm not buying it. And they shouldn't buy it either. But in order to kind of slip one past the goalie of their mind here, they have to rush in and say, well, I'm saving you. And the focus here for this guy has to be all on her and her family and her situation. And I think she's done a good job of doing that. So to where he completely ignores and neglects the responsibilities of his situation, because it's not as lustful, because he's comparing apples and oranges here, where he doesn't understand a natural relationship cycle as well. He wants the thrill of like, courtship is what he wants. So it's not that this other person's better than you. There may be a better liar for some of you. They're a lot stronger than you too. But he's got to rush over and because somebody here, they're just a manipulator. They pretend to be a lamb, but they're really a wolf. And if somebody actually needed help, it wouldn't be this person. It wouldn't be this person, right? LOL to that. This is a very strong person that pretends to need assistance. And it's just to distract him. And it's just because they know that they're tapping into his lust, and his lust, they kind of know, doesn't even revolve around them. It revolves around him. Or maybe they actually thought that they were the apple of his eye, but really he's the apple of his eye. And so he just jumps into this new kind of courtship situation. And sometimes it's real and sometimes it's manufactured. So he's just not strong at the end of the day. And this is like some kind of devil energy, where it's like this impulse, this some kind of impulsive decision then leads to some kind of very long-term pain around this man. For his family who gets dragged behind him, the family he was supposed to protect. And for some, it's like the family that he started with, it was this manipulator that he started it with. So you just got to take this how it resonates. But it's jumping in with somebody here, and then that leads to some kind of contract, and it's all for image. And then it kind of, yeah. But at the end of all of it, people will realize that they sabotage certain things, and they'll have their certain regrets. Even potentially this lady or man that slammed into your family situation and sabotaged it. They might regret involving, because eventually he's going to come to his senses. She'll be in the same boat that you were in, because she'll be old news, and there's always somebody else that needs rescuing, and he'll pop a boner for that person just because he gets to rescue. That's what it is. It has nothing, almost nothing to do with who that person is. He's obsessed with himself. And it's all very superficial, because I think this guy appears to have some type of family values. I think he's got a family, but I don't think that he does right by this family or any family that he's like kind of been a part of. And he's not actually protecting them. He's just jumping in from situation to situation to situation. So there's a lot of disillusionment that I feel like is going on here in this situation. I think maybe you're realizing maybe we are better off separated. And I think that's true even for like whoever this sabotager person is, because they could have sabotaged another connection to jump in here, and then they try to keep his focus through like some kind of drama and like rescue me. This could also be a person who's in gross competition with this man's children for his rescuer energy, so that is the last person that you should have around your family if you're serious about having, fulfilling your family obligations. Ew. And in doing so, this actually could have disintegrated, and then he could have jumped in and saved somebody else here, because that's just what he wants to do. And it's a cycle that just kind of plays out like that. And so somebody here, a lot of people are like, well, maybe we're better off separated. And maybe this man is still in his little fantasy cycle, in his little bubble, at whatever point he's with. Yeah, because it feels like there's fragmented things that he needs to put together about competition and about, the Ace of Cups, like who the actual Ace of Cups is. He's all fragmented about what that means. And it's because he does not have his own lustful energy under control, and he's kind of self-absorbed in a way that he doesn't understand. And his family is too. The men in his family are self-absorbed. His family lineage seem to be self-absorbed in a way that seems noble. And they're also very willpowered, and they drive forward, but it's all about like materialism or something. And I feel like it's hot if it were real. So I feel like you're up in your head about it. Like you're kind of, but there has been some kind of 8 of Wands, some kind of like sudden message. And it's caused this like heartbreak here. And it could be that this person went back to somebody from their past, but it also could be, whatever it is, again, it's just this disillusionment energy where it's made you realize that you thought this was like a big love, and actually this was just like karmic situation, and a lot of your own patterns were playing out here too. Because getting back to I know I've been talking forever, and this is the last thing that I'm going to say. So the internal sabotage, he sabotages himself internally because he doesn't understand what his lust and greed looks like. It looks like savior complex is what it looks like. There's somebody here who sabotages themselves by going after somebody here like this. And that's like really genuinely a persecutor energy. And so I kind of don't feel bad for this person. They kind of get what they get. I do think that their wounded pride, they're going to have a wounded pride in dealing with this man, because his cycle will repeat with somebody else, and they'll be able to recognize it, even if, because this is a very manipulative person. So, and they're just good at drama, and capitalizing on his attention. And they're also good at painting the frame. So like, I don't know, getting him to go rescue them again. That's what they're good at. But they create scenarios. Then there's, maybe for a lot of you, this is you, or like this is the person who's genuinely like the mother figure who needed help, at least at a certain point in time, genuinely needed help, because they always involve with some kind of 7 of Swords energy, because that's part of their background where somebody's kind of undermining them. And if that's you, I feel like part of the lesson is that you don't need a savior, that you are the one. Like, you get up, you are who you thought he was, or you should become that noble, high-powered in your career, will-powered, moving forward. But none of this is chintzy for you. You don't need an image, and you're not driven by your libido. And so it's actually going to be stable, but I feel like you got to get up and get away from this man in order to kind of build that. Maybe you felt alone, but I think this is something that you're meant to carry. You're meant to turn this around and develop some kind of inner strength, either instead of involving with a guy like this, or like on the back of coming out of this situation. It's like, no, I'm going to be internally strong and move forward. It feels like all of this ties into like an orphan energy, always feeling alone, always feeling like you don't have anybody. And frankly, it's guys like this and this entire cycle that leads people to feeling alone, because family should be a place where you're safe, where we stick by each other through thick and thin if it's real. But he gives the impression that it's real. He dangles, and then it's not. And people end up feeling alone. And like, yeah, they have nobody to rely on. And then the cycle starts all over where they have to kind of go build something in it. They have like an enormous willpower to do that and to not be like their dad and to overcome it. And then they just get sucked right back in by the undertow here. So I think that you're learning a lot. This is probably really painful, but this is so helpful and it's so healing. And if you can see this entire cycle for what it is, then I feel like you can really get to the root of a lot of like attachment issues, family stuff, the root of a lot of cycles that maybe have been playing out karmically for lifetimes is what I'm getting. And it has to do with competition. And like I'm hearing you should never feel like you're in competition when you're in love. Like you should never feel like you have to fight for your position or something, because once you make that certain vow or like your certain commitment to somebody, that should like really mean something. And maybe it actually doesn't mean something if he's just jumping in, one after another. If he's willing to just swap anybody in and out of that position, how special is that position to him really? And he's not on a certain level trying to understand human nature. He's just trying to put forth a certain image of himself that he's in love with. So that's what I have for you. If that resonates, please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Bye.